Isaiah 29 is a really interesting test case for how people read prophecy, because you've got two completely different religious movements looking at the same passage and both saying this is about our prophet. Mormons say that it predicts Joseph Smith. Muslims say that it predicts Muhammad. Same chapter, same verses, and both are completely confident, and both are just as confident that the other side is forcing the text. That right there should make you pause, because if the same passage can be used to prove two completely different prophets, something has gone wrong in how we're reading it. So let's walk through the arguments fairly, and we'll ask a simple question. Does this actually count as good evidence? Start with the Muslim argument. It begins with the Quran. The Quran says Muhammad is mentioned in the earlier scripture, so Muslims go looking. Then they get to Isaiah 29:12, and they see this. The book is delivered to one who is not learned, and he says, I cannot read. Then they connect that to Muhammad's first revelation in the cave of Hira. According to the Hadith, the angel tells him to read, and he responds, I cannot read, before eventually reciting the revelation. So the argument is straightforward. You've got an unlearned man, he's told to read, and he says that he can't. That sounds like Muhammad, and the Quran even calls him the unlettered prophet. Now, here's the key question. Is that actually strong evidence? Because noticing a similarity is not enough. The real question is, would you expect to see something like that even if the passage had nothing to do with Muhammad? And the answer is yes. If a text uses a general image like an unlearned man being told to read, that's the kind of thing that could match a lot of situations after the fact. It's broad, it's not specific, it doesn't uniquely point to Muhammad, so even if the similarity is real, it's not doing much work. Now, let's look at the Mormon argument. They usually don't say Isaiah alone proves Joseph Smith. Instead, they say Isaiah gives symbolic language that gets expanded in the Book of Mormon, especially 2 Nephi 27. So Isaiah talks about a vision that becomes like the words of a sealed book, given to a learned man who says, I cannot, for it is sealed, and then to an unlearned man who says, I am not learned. Then 2 Nephi turns this into a full scene. A book is delivered. It's taken to a learned man who says, bring me the book. And when he's told that it's sealed, he says, I cannot read it. Then it goes to an unlearned man, identified in LDS belief as Joseph Smith, and God enables him to bring the words forth. This is then connected to the Charles Anthon episode, where a scholar from Columbia College allegedly tells Joseph Smith's associate, Martin Harris, I cannot read a sealed book, referring to copies of characters taken from the golden plates, which Smith, an unlearned man, goes on to translate. So at first glance, this can look a lot stronger than the Muslim claim. There are more details that line up, but there's a catch. All those extra details are coming from Joseph Smith's own system. The Book of Mormon is what turns Isaiah into that specific scenario, and Joseph Smith's own story is then what is made to match that scenario. So instead of Isaiah independently predicting Joseph Smith, what you actually have is a system where the interpretation and the fulfillment are conveniently coming from the same source. That is not independent evidence, that's a loop. Now, step back and ask the same question. Would we expect to see this same kind of pattern even if Isaiah had nothing to do with Joseph Smith? Yes, if someone writes a new text that reinterprets an older one, and then tells a story that matches that reinterpretation, of course it's going to look like the fulfillment. So again, the fit is not doing as much work as it seems. Now, before we go any further, we need to ask something more basic. What is Isaiah 29 actually even about? Because if the context doesn't support these readings, then the similarities are already on shaky ground. Isaiah 29 is a judgment oracle about Jerusalem. Ariel is Jerusalem, the city where David dwelt. God warns that he will then besiege the city, bring it low, and humble its people. As part of that judgment, he also removes their ability to understand his word. Verse 10 makes this explicit. Even the prophets and seers are put in a deep sleep. Revelation is cut off. Spiritual understanding is shut down. Then Isaiah explains what that looks like. The vision becomes like the words of a sealed scroll. Give it to someone who can read, and he says, I can't, it is sealed. Give it to someone who can't read, and he says, I don't know how to read. The point is not that one succeeds where the other fails. The point is that no one can access the message. Total inability. And the reason is given in the very next verse. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is made up of human traditions. This is not a positive setting. It's a description of judgment, blindness, and false worship. Would Muslims or Latter-day Saints really want to say that this refers to their prophet? So what we end up with is a weak eisegetical method that can generate fulfillments in multiple directions. Ask a Muslim if Isaiah 29 predicts Joseph Smith. He's going to say no. Ask a Mormon if it predicts Muhammad. Same answer. And they're right about each other. If your method can pull two completely different prophets out of the same passage, it's not really strong evidence. A flexible method that can be used to prove anything doesn't actually prove anything, and that's the problem.